Good evening. My name is Rita Ross, and I'm a resident of Westwood for 22 years. When my husband and I bought our house in Westwood, many people asked us, why would you buy a house in Westwood? Why? Because we have walking neighborhoods, we have sidewalks, we have trees, we have beautiful homes. And tonight is about preserving one of the homes in our area for the public purpose of preservation. Those key words need to be remembered tonight. The public purpose is preservation of our community. That is at the heart of our community. It is at the center of our community. It used to be that when houses were listed in our neighborhood, they touted backs up against the Gamble estate as a point of pride. Now, if you look at that home, it has been allowed to deteriorate. It is what I consider to be criminal. No, we wouldn't let that happen on my little cul-de-sac. If someone had peeling paint like that, we would say, you need to paint your house. You need to repair your porch. And we take care of one another. We care about one another. This is critical to the future of Westwood. And if this house does not get preserved, you will watch an entire community continue to crumble. And as I've pointed out in emails to all of you, the property values in our neighborhood continue to slide. This will just pull the rug out from under us. And all that's going to do is kill the revenues of this city. I have held on to our house, and we pay our taxes, and we keep our yard clean.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I am very impassioned.
That's fine, thank you.
Well, my name is Jeff Heller, and I had a whole big thing planned to talk about, but it's already so eloquently been said by so many people here, and I want to thank everybody for coming and listening. I am a 50-year resident of Indian Hill, and my family knew Mrs. Nippert, and I can assure you that she did not want her husband's family homestead desecrated, and to do so would be utterly boorish. So thank you again. That's it.
Thank you.
Yes, I am Fred Berger. I've been here, and our family's been here a little bit longer. We moved here in 1837, and we still live here in Westwood in my great-grandfather's house. Over 50 years ago, when Westwood was a very different place from what it is today, a wealthy couple inherited a treasure, the estate of James N. Gamble. In some ways, this estate was similar to a valuable violin, a Stradivarius even. For many years, they preserved this estate very carefully, providing a full-time caretaker to manicure the grounds and staff to preserve both the inside and the outside of the main house and outside buildings exactly as they were when they were lived in. When I visited the house 2 years ago, it was in such fine shape that you could have had a dinner party in the dining room if the furniture was moved back in. When the family aged, they entrusted this treasure and much of their wealth to a friend and made him a trustee for their fortune. This year, this trustee and his workers literally took a hammer and destroyed the treasure, just as if he had taken a hammer to the fine violin. His actions abused both the memory of the estate and the asset itself. No justification was given for this vandalism. Think how you would feel if a friend of yours who you trusted with your treasure would treat this treasure with such violence. Your violin vandalized with a hammer and a saw. Now this trustee wants our community to forget the violin and to trade, to be happy that he has offered to plant petunias in the violin case and proudly display it as a Green Acres project. We are not all so fortunate to have inherited such a treasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us come here and voice our opinions. As most of you know already, my name is Graham Daly. My father is the former Chief Financial Officer of Procter Gamble. As I stated in my email to all of you earlier this week, I cannot think of a more noble reason to use the powers of eminent domain than to save the house of such a great philanthropist to the city of Cincinnati and the country at whole. As I stated in previous public meetings, I grew up in Indian Hill. I've been, up to this point, a supporter of the Green Acres Foundation for my entire life, and I'll tell you that you'll be doing the foundation a huge favor if you do not let them become the entity that tore down the historic James N. Gamble house. My final point, in the previous meetings, I didn't think it was appropriate to mention the company I work at, but now's the time. I work at Meisner & Associates Land Vision in O'Brienville. We do landscape architecture and urban planning, and I've spoken with our company owner, Gary Meisner, and we'd be honored to provide a pro bono concept master plan for a future James N. Gamble Park.
I want to thank all of you for coming out to our side of town for a change instead of us having to come downtown. And I also want to give a summary of what it's like for me as a citizen to answer the call, why are we here at this point? So for a citizen's point of view, I can tell you what I've been involved in almost a year of enduring time-consuming rallies, protests, court proceedings, council meetings, zone meetings, ad nauseum. To summarize the situation, the Green Acres Foundation has been totally unresponsive to any community suggestion, has turned down purchase offers, has been combative in regards to the historical designation and pursued legal maneuvers, has certainly not been a good steward of a house that has been deteriorated by neglect and has used the prospect of providing educational programs which will not include the use of the house in their relentless goal of having this historic house demolished. It is this goal of demolition which created the outrage in the Western community because the structure stands as a reminiscent of a grander era and in honor of a prominent gentleman whose generosity and integrity is not only local but throughout the world. So it has become a battle of David, us hard-working citizens who want to honor a great historical predecessor, versus Goliath, an organization which unfortunately has not used its extensive financial resources in maintaining a unique historical structure and now seeks its destruction by overpowering any dissenting community opinions and disregarding any historical significance. Therefore, we have no recourse but to come to City Council as an absolutely last resort and ask for the property to be taken as eminent domain. I believe Mrs. Nippert would have understood the situation and given us the land. Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing this, and I really want to thank everybody for coming here today. Whether you live in Westwood or you don't live in Westwood, it was an effort to come here, and it's appreciated. And I guess what really kind of is the main focus that I want to talk about is this neighborhood and this city has been left treasures by the people who came before us. People who had insight and brilliance and creativity and built this city from the ground up. That, in Mr. Gamble's case, affected the whole entire world, more than just this city. I think we have a duty of not destroying those treasures. The owner, which is Mr. Barrett, down there, or Mr. Randolph, next to Mr. Barrett, back there 8 rows behind me, Carter Randolph is the person who should be ashamed of himself by the neglect that has happened to that building. So I'm sure Mr. Randolph probably wants to take a bow for what he's done to that beautiful home and allowed to happen. He should be ashamed of himself. So I wanted everybody to know they're here in the room and they're watching, and that's their paid stenographer. She's reporting and taking down all the information. So they're here, and make sure that you go let them know personally how you feel about this. We have a duty to what's happened here and to affect change and protect the legacy of the people who came before us. And in this case, the owner has given us the big middle finger and given the house a big middle finger, failing to realize that the money that Green Acres has directly is coming from Mr. James N. Gamble's, whose house he wants to destroy. So I guess I'm asking you to do the right thing, not on behalf of Westwood, but behalf on the larger picture of James N. Gamble and doing the right thing to that house. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a very personal reason for being here this evening. Very briefly, my mother was born on the property. Right behind the big house there was a smaller house. My grandparents lived there and had 8 children. My mother and her younger brother were born there. My grandfather was the liveryman and took care of the horses and buggies for James Gamble, and then when the automobiles came in, he was his chauffeur. And I have very vivid memories. I did go in the house once with my mother, just once when we were visiting. And over the years, when the family would get together, her brothers and sisters, always they would talk about Mr. Gamble and what a wonderful man he was, how much he loved Westwood, loved the neighbors, and would do anything for people, who's very kind. And so I have to apologize and say that my reason for wanting that to be there is a very personal reason, but I just wanted people to know what a wonderful person he was. He was one good neighbor and employer. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor, for being here tonight. I do appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. My name is Carl Fox. I'm a 52-year-old resident of the area. I was born and raised the majority of my life in Cincinnati. I now actually live over in Covington and am restoring property over there. Since the age of 16, I have been active in trying to preserve many, many buildings in the area, and have personally worked on and helped restore over a dozen properties. I have spoken to Carter Randolph twice regarding this issue when I first became aware of it. I will tell you that he was polite to me over the phone, but I did feel that it was disingenuous, and I did feel that I was basically just being led on and lied to. I pointed out to him that he had stated in the paper that demolition was not predetermined. It was. I stated to him that I didn't understand why they were not going to restore the property. He said he had no money. I pointed out that it stated in the paper that in addition to donating the land, they had been donated $100 million. That he had stated in the paper that it would cost around $1 million at that time. That is 1% of the amount of money that she gave him. As I pointed out to him, that would leave $99 million still in the bank. It strikes me as very odd that somebody would state that they could not afford to restore that house. This house is part and parcel to this city, this nation, and indeed the world. Everywhere you go, and I have had the blessings of traveling all over the country and all over the world, everywhere you go, they know Cincinnati because of Gamble, Procter Gamble, and they know it because of Ivory Soap. We need to save this house. It is totally restorable. It is in our power. After having watched too many buildings in this city be demolished, I beg you to save it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.